Welcome to The Exchange. I'm your host, Rob Cox. Today, we're talking about the economics of the contemporary art market. My guests are Don Thompson, author of the book, The $12 Million Stuffed Shark, The Curious Economics of the Contemporary Art World, and Brett Gorvey, chairman and international head of post-war and contemporary art at Christie's. Don and Brett, thanks for joining me. We've got the big May auctions coming up, and let's talk first about what you've got on offer, what people are going to be looking for in particular, and the kind of numbers people are going to be looking for from some of the art you guys have.
We have one of the strongest sales we've ever seen, and this is both a testament to the strength of the overall global market and also a desire amongst our buying public for two particular elements: collections, works that come from estates, or a focal point where you've got collectors who've put a huge amount of effort into building collections and who are now selling, and icons, objects which are understood by both the public as much as by collectors as the best of the best.
And specifically in the May auction, what do you have that stands out in that?
We have one of the greatest Rothkos to come to market. It's a work which actually comes from a collection. It's the Pincus collection, which is a collection from Philadelphia. It's estimated at $35 to $45 million. It has the potential of a breakout price because it is truly the best of the best. Also in the sale, we have a work by the French artist called Yves Klein. A lot of collectors buy with their ears as much as with their eyes, and they will know that this painting, because the chatter on the street is that this is truly the greatest painting by the artist ever to come to market.
What are the estimates on these?
So this is estimated at $30 to $40 million. And across the board this season, 30 to 40, 35 to 45 for the very top works seems to be the range that has been put both by ourselves, by our competitors, Sotheby's. It seems to be the new norm is if you've got a great painting, it's 30 to 40.
30 to 40. Don, how do people come up with these numbers? I know Brett's got his formula, but I mean, you've written about the economics of art.
One of the amazing parts is that the contemporary art market over the last 18 months has defied the recession. All of their economic indicators are flat or down, and the contemporary art prices for art at this level, at the very highest level, not so much the middle, not so much the bottom third, but at this level have continued to go up. And trophy works are coming to market, would not have come out in 07 or 08, and they're bringing these enormous prices.
What's driving it? I mean, what are the economic factors
part of it is that the market for this has become worldwide. There are Chinese bidders. A third of the market for contemporary art is in the Middle East. It's in Qatar and Abu Dhabi. It's Russian, it's Hong Kong, it's South American. As compared with the recovery after the 1990 crash in the market, where the market was largely Upper East Side New York.
Right. And so, Brett, I mean, yeah, you have basically got yourself an entire globe that is interested in this art. What is it about some of the stuff that you've got, the Gerhard Richters, the Yves Kleins, that is this stuff carry across sort of every culture, or is this because people want to have museums, or I mean, where is the demand?
I think first of all, this is very exciting material, and it's material in most cases that was made in people's lifetimes. So you're finding younger collectors in their 40s and their 50s responding to pop art, responding to abstract expressionism, art that ultimately they've seen in museums. In many cases, these are paintings that have come directly from museums. The Rothko has been on long-term loan to the Philadelphia Museum of Art for the last 20 or so years.
And the Akron Museum of Art, I think.
We have, we have a major Cindy Sherman centerfold at 2.8 to 3.2 million.
That's a well-timed sale, I would imagine.
Well, we got a world record price for Cindy Sherman a year ago when a work sold.
World record for her, or for
her, as well as for work of photography,
right.
sold for $3.8 million, and that prompted the museum to look at their own store to say, we've got two fantastic Cindy Shermans, this is the time to sell in order for us to buy again.
So they're basically creating liquidity in their portfolio to buy other stuff. You had an unbelievable, was it in 2007 you sold the Warhol, the green car crash, started at?
The estimate was $25 to $35 million.
Ended at?
$71.5 million.
Now how, as an auctioneer, how do you guys actually create that kind of excitement for, for a painting?
Well, first of all, the painting itself is, and was at that stage, considered to be the greatest Warhol to come to market. Now, the auction houses are known for their superlatives. In this case, we truly can say it was one of the rarest objects to come
Until
to sale.
another one comes up. That's
You just
no,
won't get it, but there hasn't been. Since 2007, there hasn't been a Warhol of this caliber.
Yeah.
And it was the rarity of the object. But again, you're dealing with the subject matter. This was a dark subject. This was a car crash with an image of a man who'd been impaled on a post. So you're not talking about necessarily everyone wanting to live with this.
Don't put it over the dining room table.
Well, in fact, maybe it would look pretty good above the dining table. But for the hardcore collector, ultimately, and you're talking for this particular object above $40 million, there were 4 or 5 individuals who wanted the object and were willing to go on and bid. And what was so interesting about that bidding, and you can watch it on YouTube, it takes 9 minutes, and you really see the thought process that goes in.
25 to 72 in 9 minutes is an extraordinary.
It was actually an amazing and very slow progression. But what was very interesting is I spoke to the underbidder. And the underbidder, we love underbidders because they're there for the next time, if you can find another great Warhol. And I spoke to the underbidder as to why, and you watch this video and you see around $50 million, he stops. And someone else comes in at that point. And you see him going from 25 all the way up to 50. And I asked him, why at 50 did you break? And then he comes back in later. And he starts bidding around 60, and he goes all the way up to the 71 before the 71.5 final price. And he looked around and he realized that he and the other bidder were the only 2 people bidding at that point. And he lost, it was almost like looking down, and he lost his nerve. And he realized that if it wasn't for him, maybe the price would have sold at, the penny would have sold at $30 million. As soon as another bidder came in, so he realized, in fact, his bid was not necessary. There would have been a bidding war between these 2 individuals.
I mean, this is true with anything, and when competition in general on pricing, right, in any market, I suppose. Don, how have museums that are being created around the world, like Abu Dhabi, how has that affected what's going on in the contemporary art market?
Well, about a third of the market for high-end contemporary art, the really museum quality stuff, is going to the Middle East. It's going to Qatar, it's going to Abu Dhabi. And Abu Dhabi is more transparent in what they're doing. They've said they're buying, over 3.5 years, 1,300 museum quality works for New Guggenheim, Abu Dhabi.
Right.
Now that's 1 acquisition a day for 3.5 years. And while they've never said price is no object, they've said quality is the only object.
And they're doing these in auctions as well as private.
They at one point said they hadn't bought anything at auction, it had all been private. But that doesn't mean that other people didn't buy things at auction for them.
Right.
So we don't know that.
Right. Now you've talked about branding. The brand, explain a bit, how do you think that's coming into play here?
Well, I was going to say about this, you have to, when you say, why is this worth $72 million? It is 1 bid above what the next bidder is willing to pay before they drop out. And if you get, and the bidding process is acquisitiveness, and it's lust, and it's competition. I've heard a saying in the auction world about, the heaven is 2 Russian oligarchs who refuse to back down in the face of each other, bidding against each other. And so somebody wins and other people, there's a sense in auctions when you're momentarily the high bidder, and then somebody outbids you that you've lost. It's a sense of regret.
Right.
And you jump back in.
Well, I mean, if you're worth enough money to spend $50 to $75 million on a painting, you are a competitive person, I'm sure, and you don't like to lose, whatever.
Yeah, but there's still rationality that comes into this. I mean, from an auction position and from the private, from the seller's point of view, they want irrational behavior. They want, as you described, 2 Russian oligarchs against each other, and generally this type of buyer, a new buyer, loves auction because they see the transparency of auction. They like to see another bidder against them, and their security is knowing that there was someone who underbid below them. If you're a more seasoned collector, you don't want necessarily any competition. You want to take away that prize without competition. But what's interesting is when you see a number of very seasoned collectors and some new collectors, many of who have advisors, and how they rally against each other. And often you'll see that they all come to the same price point, and then it's one who breaks it. And ultimately it's because there is a acknowledged value that comes to a certain object as much as what happens in the craziness of auction. And
one last question. I mean, you've pointed out that there's a sort of disconnect between recession and the art market. I mean, what are there any lessons to draw?
I think the greatest connection to the art market is really what's happening in the real estate business here in New York or in London, where you've got a truly international market. And I think what drives our market is the notion that it's not regional. You are not reliant on one economy. So when America is no longer as strong, which is been the case. In fact, until recently, we had sales in London where the Americans were the strongest,
right.
Which again demonstrated a move, a sort of rush away from certain other areas of the markets to go into the art market because they see that as being the most secure and the most for long-term position. You've got great quality, you're buying great quality, and the values are staying. But ultimately, I think what is driving our market truly is this international competition. And it is one of the few markets that has that aspect where a Picasso speaks many languages. It speaks Russian, it speaks Chinese, and ultimately when you can bring that together in an auction setting, the prices can be extraordinary.
Right, well, Picasso speaks many languages. I like that. Thank you guys very much. That's all the time we have today. I want to thank my guests, Don Thompson and Brett Gorvey. I'm Rob Cox. Join us again next week on The Exchange.